Thanks, Minister, and to your staff. Thanks. Just a couple of questions, Minister, and I'm just looking at figures from 1.76 million was the total budget, was it, that was allocated. Am I correct in saying it's 1.8 billion this year? Is it 40 million of a difference?
Yes, 1.82 million this year. So 1.82 billion this year. Sorry, you're talking about the overall budget for the department. Yeah, 1.82 billion this year. Deputy, yes.
So it's not. So the difference is about 60 million of a difference. Is that correct?
In terms of where we're at here with the revised estimate at the moment, it would be the figure. Certainly, it's about six. Basically, where we are in terms of budget. Budget 2021 is 6% up on the existing rev, based on including funding during the year for Brexit, and also it would also include the €50 million one-off scheme for COVID response scheme for beef as well. So, but based on the budget day figures last year, it would be 11% up.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is on the spend, there was the total exchequer contribution that's here is 1.7. 1.7 is at 6 billion, and we're going to 1.8. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
So it's 40 million.
Yes, yeah.
Right, that's lovely. The underspend, and you might just we know from 16 to 20 we have an underspend of a large amount on forestry because of the situation that developed. We know that there's no knowledge transfer from 19 going forward. Where the monies, and we know that under the sheep welfare scheme, 25 million was allocated. I think something like 16 million was laid out. Where does the money go from that's allocated for those schemes? When you look at the amount of tree planting, say for. Well, it's just a general question. Where does those monies, if they're not spent, is it back to the exchequer? All those monies goes for the following year.
For certain capital allocations, Deputy, it's possible to do capital carryover from one year into the next. In terms of the current envelope, then the current spend is in the year in hand. For the outgoing year 2019, there would have been the World Food Programme would have been paid towards the end of the year, paid a year ahead. Obviously, as a department, you are constrained from actually legally constrained from exceeding a given year's overall estimate and allocation. So there can be a small amount at the end of the year in terms of current. Obviously, it's really important that you work to ensure that that's kept within the department from a departmental point of view where possible. And that would have been the reason for the World Food Programme having been forward paid last year, and potentially it'll be kept under review as we get towards the end of the year this year too, and it would be an option available as well in terms of any residue of current funding.
And is there a department figure of what goes back to the exchequer that's not spent every year?
So at the moment we're on course for over 99% spend on current expenditure, but we'll have to keep it under review as we get close to the end of the year, Deputy, and we're working to ensure that it is spent within the department.
The reason I find that hard to understand, and maybe I'm getting it wrong, that if we put in a figure for for the sake of argument of forestry, that we're going to plant 7,000 hectares, we have a provisional sum in for the lot. If we were at 2,500 hectares, 5,000 hectares of a difference is a fairly large sum, and I just don't know how we can be down to 1% in the overall figures after that.
Yeah, you can carry over capital, Deputy. Unlike with current, you can carry over capital. So there does, and there can be a carryover from forestry this year into next year to ensure that the funding is available next year to spend.